How's everyone today? Happy holidays. The last Borough Board of the year. We finally made it. I hope that everyone picked up a copy of the dates for 2018 for Borough Board and for Borough Service Cabinet. We'll be sending this out electronically to folks. And you'll also see that we have June, July, and August dates for some of these meetings, which typically we don't meet in the summer. But it's always good to just have dates on hand, so in case there's a vote or anything like that, we already have the dates set. Hi, good morning. Yeah, there's seats. There's a seat over here. There's a seat by me. Wonderful. All right, so just to start off, I'm going to take a motion to adopt the December 14th, 2017 Borough Board meeting agenda. Second. Wonderful. Motion passed. I'm also making a motion to adopt the November 16th Borough Board meeting minutes, which Brian sent out on Monday. Did folks have any corrections or anything? Okay. Wonderful. So minutes have been passed. So I want to thank EDC for coming in today. We are having a presentation from Will Fisher and his colleague regarding 2 lease extensions at Pier 14 with an operator with Maiden Rest. So you all can take it away. You know, we should probably pull this forward.
Oh, great. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Will Fisher from the Economic Development Corporation. We have Sarah Wagner here from our asset management team and Scott from our legal team here. So thank you for having us. Happy holidays. Hope everybody got here okay in the snow. So yeah, I wanted to just kick it off before Sarah gets into the details. As Lucille said, these are a couple properties that are down on Pier 15 on the waterfront. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. A couple of properties that were opened just before Hurricane Sandy and impacted by the storm, but then have had a lot of success down in the Seaport. We are coming here today to, we won't need a vote from the Borough Board, but we wanted to make sure that all of you were looped in and go through this as just to make sure that we get all your feedback if there's any feedback on this particular lease. The crux of the proposal is to extend the leases for these 2 facilities by about 10 years, but there's a couple more details that Sarah will run through, so I'll kick it over to her.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Wagner. So I'm working with Will at NYCBC in the asset management group. So I'm here to present the lease extension. So the lease extension for 2 leases that we have at Pier 15. The first one is Maiden Rest. For the purpose of the presentation, we're going to call it Industry Kitchen. This is actually the name of the restaurant and will be easier. The second one is Pier 15 LLC, and the name of the restaurant is Watermark. Both of them are at South Street Seaport on Pier. So Watermark is on Pier 15, and Industry Kitchen is actually under the FDR, next to the Esplanade. Both of them are restaurants. They've been open since 2013. And both of them are really successful. Overall, EDC is really happy with them. Just for you to know and to maybe visualize the restaurant, this is Industry Kitchen under the FDR. And this is Watermark, which is on the pier. So what we are proposing is to amend the lease in 2 ways. The first one is to change the lease term. So right now the lease is running until 2023. Plus they do have a 5-year extension with the lease right now that will lead them until 2028. Sorry. We are proposing an additional 10 years extension that will lead them to 2038. So in exchange, DC also wanted to change the financial term. So right now under the lease, they have a provision that we call the participation rent, which means that each time their sales exceed 4 million, they have to give us and to give the city 25,000 a year. And if it exceeds 5 million, they have to give us 15,000 a year. This overall amount is capped to 500,000 over the initial term, so this first part here. EDC proposed to increase this cap and cap it to 800,000 a year over the total term of the lease, which means that in exchange of extending the lease, the city is going to have financial incentive to do so. So what are the next steps? In terms of next step, first we would like to have your comment on this. And the second one is going to be a public hearing on the 20th of December. So please note that it's not at 10:30, it's actually at 10 a.m. In the morning. It's here at the mezzanine level. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Well, I'm curious. Why this particular lease change?
So they came to us a year ago. They've been heavily impacted by Sandy. So just to give you maybe a little bit of context, we signed their lease in 2012, just before Sandy. Sandy arrived. They started the work and they had to do the work all over again. So they were really heavily impacted by Sandy, and they need to recoup their sales. Sorry. We were willing to do that because it's really a very good tenant. We know that they are extremely successful at South Street Seaport, and they also have a lease that makes sense financially for the city, so that's why we were willing to extend it.
And so how does this, so, CB1 represents the seaport, but for other peers, on the waterfront, how will this new lease change impact other franchises or concessions at other piers?
It shouldn't have an impact. So this is, like Sarah said, they are both very good tenants for the city, and then also had a bump in the road with Sandy, which came within the first 6 months of their lease. So given that they want to remain at the location longer, but they're also a good tenant, the city's going to be capturing more revenue from this as well. So it's kind of a win-win for both parties. In regards to any other waterfront leases, there won't be any effect or precedent or anything like that set from this.
So, please.
I'm sorry.
Go, no, please.
No, I just wanted to get a little bit of a background and history to this, because was this an RFP that was put out some time back and that they responded to? And
So Scott, maybe.
so if you want to do that, and then we have other restaurants. I know there are a few restaurants that are very near to the waterfront. They were not. I don't think they were not on city property, but they had a very difficult time because EC was supporting construction in that area. This is 125th and 12th Avenue, and so together with the Columbia construction that was going on, there was also like this landscaping that was happening around there. And it was very destructive to the businesses there. One of the businesses closed down. Now, notwithstanding that there are a few other issues that was going on in the business. But it seems like EDC is really working with the restaurant groups to help them be successful. And we want to make sure that this is happening in other parts of the city as well. That is ultimately the aim and the angle that they're coming with in working with these businesses. So whether or not that would be applied in that way, because we have seen significant loss of business for these particular restaurants up there, and what type of, and then I understand it wouldn't be a lease because it's not on city property, it's not. But what types of way are you going to be making these type of overtures to help these businesses? So if you can just give a history of how this happened, and then just answer that second question. Sorry.
Those are very good points. What I'd like to start with is the history, and this actually went through a long process. In 2007, it went through the entire ULURP process, and so there was a uniform land use review process, and many of these issues were considered, as well as Piers 35 and the locality. It took till 2010 that they did issue an RFP. I actually have a copy of it. It's 50 or 60 pages, so I didn't make multiple copies. And it opened it up not just to restaurants, but really to any use that best served the community. And these particular restaurants were selected through the RFP process. And so we really did look to go out to the community. We looked to meet many of the needs that you mentioned. And we all know that there's been a lot of work in construction at South Street Seaport area. And as we can say, we're hoping that a lot of that's wrapping up. So we're sensitive to these type of issues. And some of the position in this particular extension reflects that sensitivity to the fact that when there is all this work and construction going on, trying to be supportive of a local business and providing that. So I would hope we extend that further.
Right, and absolutely, and if there's particular businesses that you feel are impacted by EEC activities, I'm happy to follow up with you afterwards to make sure that that gets taken care of.
All right, please, thank you.
Yep.
One other question, this component of if they make over a certain amount of money, then money gets kicked back to the city. Is that endemic to other leases that you all strike with businesses and entities?
I wish I could say there was a uniform answer. It's really case by case. In this particular case, one of the two leases has it and the other doesn't. So I can't even say it's absolutely uniform, but it is something that, to the extent that we can, just like you said, we would like to see businesses succeed. We like to see them excel, but we'd also like the city to be able to participate in their success, not take away from their success, but participate. And that's what we've done. And to your point, we very specifically looked at this, and we looked at the extension and said, let's make sure we continue to capture the upside. And we hope that we hope they do incredibly well, and there is. And we actually doubled what was the cap. So even in this extension, the city will do well if they do well, and that's our hope.
And so you plan to do this moving forward with other lease extensions?
So it will depend on the particular case, and Sarah from the asset management team may have more particular details. But I'm aware, for example, that leases as small as this one, but as large as the Staten Island Yankees for the stadium there. Leases of all shapes and sizes throughout the city have. Some of them have this sort of thing, so that again the city can capitalize on the success that its tenants have, and take part in the success that's going on with its projects.
So why is it with Industry Kitchen and not Watermark?
So it's actually, if you read the Industry Kitchen lease, the 4 million are the sales from Industry Kitchen and Watermark. So it's actually in Industry Kitchen lease, but it captures both sales of both entities. It's a bit complex. It's just like, I don't know, maybe you should explain it.
It was part of the negotiation, because this was much less, as you know, back then there was a lot of construction going on, and it wasn't a sure thing, in terms of the success. As you've noted, construction and lots of work going on sometimes can be detrimental to a business. So a lot of it was in the negotiation process. We looked at the two sites, and we came up with both the number, but what we thought would be equitable. So in one of them, it flows from one to the next, and we wanted to capture that. And that's why Industry Kitchen includes a participation, but not the Watermark. But Industry Kitchen's participation number cap doubled when we gave them the additional time.
What's the criteria used in negotiating the lease that this one will have participation and the other one will not?
I think what we look
And
at...
not just in terms
Yes.
of these two, but overall.
A very, very good question, and it really is case by case. You have to look at the location, 125th, look at the different financial factors, look at the proposals that we received, because we are beholden when we put out an RFP to have people submit proposals, and we may request 4 different levels, base rent at a fixed level, participation, perhaps improvements. Maybe they're willing to do more capital improvements. Perhaps they'd be willing to work with the community more. So part of the proposal process is a case by case. So I wouldn't be able to give you an exact 25% participation for every location in the city. But I will say that when we put out the proposals, we very often try to look at the high end and ask for, please give in your proposal. Some locations support that, and we would like to be supportive of those that do and supportive of the proposers that do. But there's so many factors that go into making the determination that's what's in the best interest of the community, what's in the best interest of the city, and what would ultimately be appropriate for both economic development, community development, and maybe a large capital investment that they're willing to put in.
So is this something that is done with other city agencies? Like, say, for example, parks, but they're, I know, like, say, on 10847th and inside the park, in Riverside Park, there's actually, I think I don't remember, there's a restaurant there, I don't remember the name of the restaurant.
I appreciate that question, and I do work with parks, and I think I've seen some, but I'd probably be stepping outside of my jurisdiction and my real information. And what I wouldn't want to do is be providing, information that may be, much.
So in a
Yes.
situation like this, in
Yeah,
the
so
parks,
I would like
EDC
to.
is wholly done by parks, and EDC is not involved at all.
Well, in this particular case, Parks isn't, although Parks, as you know, has involvement in the Esplanade and up above, like at Pier 36, and so there are portions that are Parks. Primarily, Department of Small Business Services is who has jurisdiction over the waterfront, and so of course we're working with them. We, do our best to get information and access to the community and have community input, certainly to any city agency. And we look to follow the best practices of every city agency.
In negotiating or considering a participation aspect to a lease, would you tend to consider, a lower base rent at the outset in order to sort of incentivize the business to have a greater chance of success, which then was in your benefit?
I like that approach, but I also say that perhaps they've come with $1 million of capital improvement and somebody's not willing to put any, or maybe they have a long history of really good restaurants, really good community relations, and someone else promises us, this great deal, but they have maybe not the experience or the history. So there's so many factors that go in, that I would be remiss to try to give a firm, but I like what you're saying. I like where where you're approaching it, and I think that we do our best to incorporate those ideas. There is a balance, and it may factor in depending on the location, the particular community needs, maybe the history of the site. Maybe there never was a restaurant here, and people in the community really want one. We might have to be a little more flexible, with that in mind.
Any other questions? I would love for EDC to come back in the new year to talk more about economic development and small businesses. I think that
Absolutely.
there's a great opportunity to have
you.
that reflected here.
Absolutely.
But
Yep.
we appreciate you coming
Yeah,
in. Thank
thanks
you.
so much.
All right, moving along. So we now have the Borough President report, which there's been a lot going on in our office in the last month since we've seen you. So first, I want to acknowledge all of our departing chairs, and also welcome our new chairs that are with us today. So I would say thank you so much to both Jamie, who will be stepping down as chair in December. I would also like to thank Claude Winfield, who has ably stepped in as acting chair, and his new chair, Molly Hollister, was just voted in last evening. So thank you to Claude. I would like to welcome two new chairs who will be joining the group. I'm so sorry, Jim Kleins. How could I even forget? Jim had his last board meeting last night. But we will not be presenting a proc to you until January, right? So we want to thank you, Jim, for your service with the community board, and say thank you. And so now, to welcome our new chairs, we have Bert Lazarin from CB4. And we have Nosa Arama from CB11, the new board chair. So you can, we'll add your name to the list, the contact list, but this chair group for both Nilsa and for Bert, they are resources to you, and so we really hope that you reach out to your fellow board chairs, ask them questions. Shah has been sort of organizing small groups of chairs getting together, and I know that you also have like a contact list for the chairs and stuff like that.
Well, thanks to Jamie. Jamie created a list.
Wonderful.
So thank you, Jane, for that.
And it's
Right.
every day.
Right. And we've been doing small chair gatherings. I'd love to do a big chair gathering, you know, have whole furniture storage chairs, you know, and everyone's welcome to Washington High School for a gathering.
Wonderful. So we thank our new chairs, and we thank our departing chairs. A couple of things to just keep in mind. On the legislative front, our office just passed our Open Data 2.0 legislation with Chairman Baca, which is really exciting. So we know that Gail championed the Data law passing in 2012, which requires government agencies to make their non-confidential data available publicly. And, you know, we've seen great success with the open data law, I think, in terms of trying to educate people that it exists. But I think that we know that there's more that can be done in terms of making the data more user-friendly. I want to also use this opportunity to continue to push BoardStat. Earlier this week, Jessica and I had an opportunity to see some of the projects that the CUNY Service Corps members have been doing with open data and with BoardStat, and it's been amazing. And so we will be offering in the new year additional training courses for people to get trained in BoardStat, and we really encourage not just the chairs to come to the training, but also the district managers. We want the folks on your staff who will be working with this program. We want them to come and get educated on it and to feel fluency with it. So we will be offering more courses, and then we also encourage members of yours who also will be helping board staff with the BoardStat transition to also take the training. So we encourage folks to do that. And so the update to the law basically makes compliance easier for city agencies and improves the type of standards that we publish the data with. And so it also sets a 2021 deadline for agencies to comply with the new law. So we're encouraging of that. Also on the legislative front, we passed our summer meals bill. And so we know that federally free funded summer meals are available to families, but families lack the information of when and where they can provide, where these meals are provided. Every year we do in this office, we do a huge flyer in each neighborhood, locating each school and each institution that has summer meals. And so now it will require the DOE and other city agencies to distribute detailed information on summer meal locations, times, and dates by June 1st every year. So basically, we have taken the responsibility from us and put it back on the DOE, and so we're very thankful and happy about that.
Quick question about that. So will it
Yes.
just be DOE or other city agencies that will be expected to provide that information as well?
So it says DOE and other city agencies. Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, the bill requires this DOE, I mean, they collect the information, even if it's NYCHA sites, they're supposed to know all the places where summer meals are provided.
Mm-hmm.
And they do eventually know, it's just by the time they give it out to kids, they're
Summer's
like,
almost done.
already. So this is really just changing the date. They say, listen, June 1st, you gotta give it to the kids and the parents while they're still in school, or else you're gonna lose your whole audience.
I also want to acknowledge Councilmember Gorodnick for passing his CRT bill, which is really exciting. I want to thank both Jim Kleins and Claude for coming to the event last week, to the press conference. And Terry, yes, absolutely. I didn't know that you were there. I'm happy that you were, though. And so our companion bill for supermarkets did not pass out of council this term, but we are looking to reintroduce in the new term. But we are encouraged that, and we hope that the legislation will pass in the new year. A couple of other announcements. So community board applications are live. This past week, I have sent out emails, and actually all of the liaisons in community affairs have sent out reminders to all of your members that are up for reappointment. I've also sent to every chair here a list of all of the members that are up for reappointment. The idea is that usually every Friday, someone in community affairs, the liaison will send a reminder email out to the members who have not yet applied. We won't keep bugging the people that have, but we will continue to send out these weekly reminders, and we hope that you too will also remind your folks to either, let us know that they'll be reapplying, or if they will not be reapplying, to indicate that to us in an email. It doesn't have to be anything super fancy. and they can actually email you and you can forward it to us if that also makes it easier for people. We just need to know when they're going to step down. So if they are going to immediately step down, then we need to know that. If they're going to see through their seat until April, then that's fine as well. But we do need to know that just so that we can start the count of vacancies. We are looking to have a few events around recruitment, and I've also talked to all of the chairs about what they're looking for, what you're looking for in terms of new members. For the new chairs, I will be reaching out to all of you to also have that discussion to bring your perspective into the mix. And so the idea is that we really want to, recruit efficiently. And so if you have ideas of people we need to be reaching out to, of organizations in your neighborhoods that we need to be reaching out to, let me know. Our office will be doing a teen recruitment event January the 19th from 4:30 to 6:30 right here in this room. I actively encourage you to invite young people, particularly for our uptown boards that I know that folks have been wanting. I've heard from 9, 10, and 12 that they've wanted some more young people. So we would be happy if you could help to spread the word to your young people. And then also we'll be doing a teen event with the POW Harlem Center the following Friday on January the 26th. From 5:30 to 7:30. So there'll be a lot of different events happening. We'll also be sending out community board applications to all of the libraries in Manhattan, and then other just public community spaces. So, and I also have like a JPEG and other things. So if you would like for me to sort of prep a email for you that you can then send out to your network of nonprofits and community members, I can certainly do that if folks are interested. Yes.
A JPEG would be very useful for those of us who are pushing things out on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say, I'm thinking that we would all love to have a toolkit that we could send out.
Okay, perfect. And I want to thank Aries in our office, our social media strategist who's been helping me with that. But yes, we also will be doing targeted Facebook ads, and we have found that this has really worked in years previous. And so part of when I have discussions with you all about like geography, like are there different places in your neighborhood that you're missing or you would like to see more applicants, I take that to Aries, and then he helps to pinpoint for me places for us to do advertising for community boards. And so all of the information that you give me is very helpful and informs how we target our recruitment strategy. So, yes.
On the team, we loved the team we had 2 years ago, but they have different kind of commitments than board members, so it would be helpful when you appoint teams to the boards to work with the chair or the DM to figure out how to use the integrate the team into the board in a more effective, more efficient way.
Absolutely. It's interesting, as we've been having 16 and 17-year-old, I guess it's been almost 3 years now. So we've had, a couple of full cycles of teams. I have to say, overwhelmingly, it's been pretty successful. I've had a couple, 1 or 2 that haven't exactly worked out, but I would say overall, and even boards that were not excited to get teens. Bob literally said to me, he was like, she's the best member we have.
And of course, then you lose them.
And then you lose them because of college. But I think what is exciting is that she's amazing. We hope that she wants to come back. And we hope that she also wants to continue being civically engaged. But I have found that certain things that have been helpful, typically the board chair or someone else will appoint sort of a mentor for the young person. And again, that could be anyone that just is a little bit more fluent in teenage speak, or maybe have some young people at home that they can sort of relate to, but also someone that has the patience to really sit down, explain different terms. And again, this isn't just for teens. I say this really should be for everyone. I know that Claude does a really amazing onboarding process for his new members. And so we would love boards to sort of develop an onboarding process for their new members, but particularly for their teen members. They have to know what land use terms are, and they have to feel free to be able to ask questions and not feel like someone's going to get upset with them because they're asking a question. And so we can certainly help you with that, and maybe talk to you about different members that might be good for that.
We've had very good experience with our team members. They have been some of the hardest working.
Mhm.
And the mentoring helped. They've been very active. And the only downside is that we, like Terry said, we lose them, they go off to college.
Yeah,
But hopefully, some of them will come back after they do it.
that is the hope.
We have a board member who was on the board years ago as a team, Benjamin Howard.
Oh, yes. I think he might have been our first teen,
I think he was.
unofficially.
And he admits that there were meetings where he did do his chemistry homework.
Yes, Ms.
One
Lucy.
for, I would say about 6 years has used a buddy system.
Mhm.
And any new member is.
We do too.
Yeah, and we find that to be
But I do
helpful.
have a question. Do you
Yes.
reach out to the previous applicants that did not get accepted to become a board member?
We do. So we have a mailing list of all of the people that did not get on the board, and we send out a
Not
push
all of
to
them.
them. Well, no, we do. We push it to all of them. But you know, I think this.
reasons why some of them didn't make it.
No, absolutely, but we still want, and you know what, the thing is that it could have been that they didn't get on the board for a myriad of reasons, not necessarily because they weren't, you know, good applicants, but there just maybe weren't enough spaces, or maybe they realized that they just didn't have the time to commit to being a community board member, but maybe want to be active doing public membership, or want to just come to meetings and just stay involved. So, we've been trying to keep in contact with those folks for sure.
We have 4 people who did not make it, who we have on task force. Because we don't have public members because they become part of the quorum. But if they're part of the task force, since we don't vote, it doesn't matter if they miss.
Yes.
I know you already probably do this ad nauseam, but I would encourage real emphasis on attendance.
Mhm.
I mean, because we,
Yes.
you know, one of our recent members, I'm sure he or she is a wonderful person, but we don't really know because they just have not participated, and you kind of scratch your head, like, well, why did you apply? Or didn't you know?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you.
I mean, everyone can tell you last year, you know, I was very clear with people during the process, the interview process, 15 to 20 hours a month. You know, that could be give or take a little more, a little less. But every chair that I've spoken to has said this exact same thing. We need people that are dedicated, that are going to come to the meetings, that are going to contribute. And, you know, this year we, you know, on our application, I don't know if folks have actually gotten a chance to look through it. I know that a lot of my chairs are reapplying, so you'll get a chance to look at the application. But we really asked the returning board members, what have you been doing for the last 2 years?
I know.
So I don't want to just know that you've been coming to meetings. I want to know, have you been writing resolutions? Have you been leading events? Have you been helping your chair in a different way than maybe some of the other members? We actually want to know what tangible thing people are doing to contribute to the board. And it is important because I get a lot of comments from chairs about, you know, seat warmers and, you know, and folks that, you know, and again, I'm not knocking the fact that not everyone is the best writer, maybe the best public speaker, but you have to be able to find your niche on the board. And that's sort of a thing that we want to actively encourage returning members to really be thinking about. What is your niche on the board? Is it that you're helpful to the chair in a certain type of way? Can you write a mean resolution? Can you, you know, schedule logistical things? Whatever it is that is your twist, we want you to bring that to service. Yes, Nelson.
Yes, I just want to echo the attendance. It's really important, and I really think it's really important with members that keep getting reappointed, that feel comfortable in the community board, and so they feel that they've invested enough time, so don't show up as much to committee meetings, or don't invest. And I think that really has to be looked at the reappointment process, because institutional knowledge is important, but attendance, and because the work is done at committee. And when people are not at the committees, you don't generally get that robust body of work that you really need to have done.
Absolutely. Yes, Shah.
So see, years back, and I have to say, I'm not sure if I saw the new updated application, but there was a section where the applicant would either attest or indicate what meetings they have gone to,
Mm-hmm.
if any in the past. And what we see at 12 is, everyone joins with like the purest of intentions. They want to do well. I don't think anyone applies not knowing that they want to do well for the community. But it's like the pace of meetings and being there for the entire time that sort of shocks folks. And then it sort of like circles me back to the beginning, like what did you think this was at the beginning? Is there a way to have a member or a prospective applicant sort of like attest and verify that they've actually sat through a committee meeting on like last night, a cold Wednesday night, till 11:30 at night? Not just the general meetings, which are exciting for about an hour and then they leave.
I mean, at least, so we still have that section on the application. We verify for our own meetings, so any borough president training or event that at least you could RSVP for if they did decide to RSVP. We do double check to make sure that that person attended our trainings. But it is sort of on the honor system that people are actually telling the truth. And you can tell in their applications if they're lying or if they're telling the truth about attending. But I do think that, maybe it is that, during the public session, you ask if there are any potential, folks that are coming to visit, or maybe there's a sign-in sheet that you all can put out that folks can just sign if they're a potential community board member to just sign the sheet. And it doesn't have to be something that's super labor intensive, but at least you can just have that there for every meeting to just check to see if new folks are actually coming.
Or maybe, because we have in our bylaws, we have a removal process that's around attendance, but it's sort of like a 5-step process. So you have to get ahead of it, before it really becomes a problem. So we started sending out these letters, and one of the letters actually went to a new appointment. So as John said, it was before we got to know this person, we're sending her a letter. And so we had a talk, we usually have a talk, and the person makes a decision whether they want to stay on or resign, and someone actually did resign. But I asked this new member, what's going on, is there anything I could do to make it easier? And she said, well, it's my job. And I thought, unless you were employed in the last month, or unless you got a brand new job, you knew this coming in. And it sort of like puts now the pressure on us, and we will still try to work with her, but sort of like, if you knew that, then sort of like spare the institution the trouble, and not apply. So
it's hard. I mean, I think that, last year, again, we had a record-breaking number of applications with over 1,000 people applying, which I don't think we're going to see this year, thankfully. But, I just think that people come in with a lot of energy and a lot of gusto, and they want to make a change, and they want to be the change. But they don't realize that the actual work involved means sitting through a lot of meetings, doing a lot of follow-up, and I think they get a little disillusioned.
We have sort of the opposite problem. We got 7 new members, they're all super energetic, and we're trying to figure out how to keep them engaged, because they can do more than just sit on a committee. And so we've been, figuring with them how to, what kind of projects they can get more.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on those 2 points, because what you initially said in terms of ensuring that folks are providing something to the board, that's really important. And engaging with projects has what we found have been pretty good in ensuring that one, they're aware of what things that are happening, that they're providing support in some sort of a way. Everyone, and I've said it to everyone, to the entire board, everyone can be a chair, right? But there's still a lot of stuff that can be individually done to support, whether you're in your committee or some sort of a subcommittee that needs something on a particular agenda that needs special attention. So we've been teasing that out, and we've gotten a few subcommittees that have been coming on to ensure that people are providing assistance in ways that they're comfortable and they have some skills already. So that has been working out for us.
Wonderful. Jamie and then Nilsa?
Yeah, to Shah's point, I think it's really effective to utilize the power of the board to, the board's power of removal. We've removed a member, and we've also encouraged members to, consider stepping down in light of their attendance. And we send out, we send out a letter which, includes the borough president and their council person that records their attendance. And what I started doing, which was really effective, is actually generate through our attendance records just a small table that indicates, you know, their attendance at each meeting over the course of, we do a 6-month audit. So, you know, it gives them a real hard, you know, it's not just like a word saying, oh, you know, you should attend more. It actually shows them, like, here's the percentage of attendance, and here's your, you know, here's how many meetings you should have attended. And that seems to hit home. Back to the teen appointments, I had some really positive conversations with a local high school that, unfortunately, we didn't actually get to sort of a substance, but we were discussing having, you know, engaging one of their civics classes, or maybe creating some kind of after-school group that involved, you know, community board participation, and it might be helpful, you know, to actually go to the principals or guidance counselors, whomever of the teens that are appointed, and say, you know, hey, you know, this person's been appointed from your school. It'd be really great if you could help us to support them.
In years past, we've had our 16 and 17-year-olds give presentations at their schools to their fellow students to encourage them, which we're going to actively do this year, and then also have them come in and also speak to other teens for like these different recruitment events that we're doing.
Right.
So, yes.
Yeah. Every year I get a question like for people who are potentially applying. And I noticed that this year in your application, you live in the district, you work in the district, you own a business, you attend school, and then you have a significant interest. That is very broad. And I'm wondering, what is it that the Manhattan Borough President thinks about when she has that other category and significant interest? Because I want to be able to explain that appropriately.
So significant interest, it's in the charter, so it's broad, but it's not as broad as you would think. So let's say, for instance, you are running a nonprofit in East Harlem, because I'll use you as an example. Let's say you don't live in East Harlem. Let's say you don't have a paying job in East Harlem. Okay, but you run this nonprofit, this volunteer nonprofit group or something like that. Now, if the nonprofit group only services people in East Harlem, okay? No one else in the city, not, you know, anyone downtown, not anyone in Washington Heights, you're only servicing people in East Harlem. That would count as a significant interest. If you are running a nonprofit that's doing amazing work in East Harlem, but also servicing CB3 and CB9, that does not fall under the category of significant interest. So significant interest really has to be, if you do not live or work in the district or go to school in the district, it really has to be a very narrowed definition of the work that you're doing in the district.
Because I think that would be helpful to be part of the application, because you're leaving it open for the applicant to explain, who may not be aware of that definition or where to look for that definition, because everything else is pretty explicit.
Yeah,
so
on the
that's something
online
to
application,
consider.
we do have like a little, you know, in the little box, the explanation box, you can click on it and it will say, you know,
The online application.
on the online application,
Right,
not,
but I'm talking
not
about
on the
paper
paper.
one.
We don't get most people using paper, but you know what? I say this, the more information you want to give us, the better. We can only tell you yes or no. And I know last year, the significant interest piece garnered a lot of attention from various folks, because there were people on various boards that we had to remove because they did not fit under the definition of significant interest. And it caused a lot of consternation, but it's very specified the reasons why.
Thank you.
And if you have questions about that, like if reapplying members have questions about that, please have them contact us. It's better for us to be able to, you know, talk to legal and to other folks. Jessica?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to reiterate, the significant interest piece is very narrow. Like, it's very rare that someone doesn't live and doesn't work in the board and is considered enough of a significant interest to still be appointed. You know, I think years ago it used to be like, oh, you know, I'm taking care of my elderly mother, my kid goes to school. That doesn't, for the jury definition, that doesn't work. So it really is what Lucille was saying, it's a very, very narrow definition of significant interest. For the most part, people need to live and work in there.
And we prefer that they live and work in the district. I mean, you know, that's the preference.
No, I agree, because I would like to know that there's a place, and I understand the private conversations happening, but I think it would be helpful for everyone to get like some information on it, so that when someone wants to apply and they have a question and they come, that you can pull that out and say, well, based on this, but if you need further clarification, please feel free to all, you know.
We don't have to, thankfully, we don't have tons of people that put down significant interest,
Good.
but yes, but I hear
It
you.
has come up with us over here.
I do hear you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so just one last thing, or actually two last things. Our capital funding application is opening shortly, and we are accepting meetings. Our budget team, they're accepting meetings with various nonprofits, schools, and also community boards who are eligible for capital funding. So if you have organizations, nonprofits in your area that are interested in getting capital funding from our office, please, you know, contact us. Did you want to say something about?
Yeah, Lester Siegel, Community
Please.
Board Unit at the Office of Management and Budget. And all 59 community boards submitted their capital and expense budget request priorities to our office. We've sent them out to the agencies. They're with the agencies right now. The way the process works is we want the agencies to have them and consider them while the agencies are preparing their departmental estimates to submit to OMB, which will result in the preliminary budget, which, if it meets the charter mandated date, will be January 16th. Sometimes the mayor and OMB can ask the council for a short delay, but January 16th is the charter mandated date. On that date, we will publish a document which will contain all of the budget requests for all of the boards with the agency's responses. We published the entire document, all 59 boards, on OMB's website, but we also email each board and each council member and each borough president's office, and we attach that board or that borough or that council member's district requests and responses, and also the email contains a link to OMB's website, so if somebody clicks on the link, they will have access to all of the preliminary budget documents, not only our document. Yes.
Thank you. And then finally, our holiday fundraiser, which is our diaper drive. So we encourage folks to donate to this. If you have not, we're actually hosting the Girl Scouts today, Troop 6000, which is the Girl Scout troop that was started by Heidi Schmidt for young women in homeless shelters. And so they're looking to actually expand this program around the city for other young women that are currently in shelter programs. But they will be coming here today to do a photo op with us, but then also learn about being a woman in government. But we really want to actively encourage people, because we're partnering with the Girl Scouts as well as Food Bank of New York, to give to this really cool sort of donation concept. Okay?
Deadline?
The deadline is the 31st. And you can donate through Amazon, so you don't even have to worry about like, how am I going to schlep a bunch of diapers down to our office or to NMO. You can just do it right through Amazon, and they will come and deliver it to us. Okay? That's all I have in terms of.
Did you send us info about, like, maybe with like suggested social media to help boost your message?
Absolutely.
Can you do that?
Absolutely. Thank you. Aries, you heard that? He did. Any other questions or anything before we go around and do board reports? Okay, so I'm going to start with CB1. Miss Lucy.
Good morning, Lucy Acevedo on behalf of CB1 for Anthony Matano. Anthony has texted me some messages here. So, as you are aware, we haven't had a DM since August. We finally are down to the last 6 selection candidates, and we should make a decision this evening and present it on December 21st.
All right.
Woohoo!
Yes, it's August. Resiliency is still a top issue, and we will be launching a subcommittee of our waterfront parks and resiliency committee to build and complete more strategies to address this issue.
Wonderful. CB2.
CB2, we'll start out on a less happy note. We found out on Friday and are very disappointed that an RFP was awarded that will destroy the only green park in the entire Little Italy Soho area. Everything else is paved and very, very small. This was a large open green space. The good news is that it's designated for affordable housing, and the 2/3 of the site will become housing. The original site, 2/3 of it was already taken for affordable housing, so now it's 2/3 of what is left will become housing. And affordable housing, especially affordable housing for seniors, is very, very important to us. It's so important that CB2 is willing to give up a bigger site that can hold 5 times the amount of affordable housing, but there's this dedication to take this site, and the process is moving forward, even though we offered what we feel is a bigger, better site in a better location. So that's that. And today, there is a new concern that legislation on street vendors is proceeding to a council vote on Tuesday without further community board input. A lot of us provided input back in 2016, and there were concerns that don't seem to be addressed. And we did identify problems, but we're not getting a chance to weigh in on this last-minute bill, and that is a concern. And I don't know whether or not, some of us might be wanting to write letters, whether or not the borough president might want to engage, because I know that Gail was at some of the hearings, both in 2014 and 2016. Vendors are good, but there's siting issues. There's a lot of issues, and we're not getting a chance to weigh in on it again. I'll report that we're looking forward to the year that's coming. We're going to be addressing ongoing issues, affordable housing. Some of our affordable housing stock is in this sort of limbo state of IMD, which is intermediate dwelling, and the landlords really don't have any incentive to shift that into rent-regulated apartments as it's supposed to be, and that since there's no penalty, why would you do it? And so we're losing people who live in these lofts, in these IMD lofts that are supposed to have a path to completion. So we're going to hopefully put some attention on that. As always, overdevelopment, oversaturation of liquor licenses, construction, things that I think all of us face to some greater or less degree. For some of us along the 14th Street corridor, the L train shutdown, there was just, I think, yesterday an announcement of here's what we're doing. Some of which comports with what we've asked for, and some of which somewhat less so. But also subway improvements, we all need that, and better bus service. Really, bus service has become the forgotten stepchild in some areas. And lastly, Mount Sinai Beth Israel transformation. In the beginning it was, it's going to be a while from now. But now that it's really happening, that Beth Israel has been downsized, that CB2 has no admitting hospital within our borders, and Mount Sinai all the way across, almost to yours, coming to yours. It's a huge concern, and I think that at 10 o'clock we're going to start talking about that, so I'll keep the rest of my brief. And I do want to say congratulations and farewell to the colleagues that are leaving, and thank you for your insights and helping me to not screw up too much when I started.
Thanks, Terry. Jamie?
Thanks. Not too much to report. We actually just retained a new assistant district manager. Very excited. He actually dove into the deep end and did a terrific presentation last night on for our land use committee on a proposed rezoning of a corridor along 3rd and 4th Avenue between 14th Street and 9th Street. This has been a topic for several months before our board, and last night the land use committee passed a resolution supporting this proposed community rezoning. So that will work its way through our process, and it's I think a pretty good culmination of many months of work and advocacy by community members. It was actually a relatively quiet month, so that'll be the end of my report. I have really enjoyed my time with all of you. You've been great, both as peers, as mentors, and I love the institution of the board. It is bittersweet that I'm not going to be serving the rest of my term as chair, and that I won't be reapplying as a member. But it's for good reason. My wife actually was elected to be the city councilwoman. She'll be starting in a couple weeks, and I'm excited for her. And before I go, I do want to make sure I get your email addresses so I can add it to our list. I'll be succeeded on January 1st by Alicia Lewis-Coleman, our first vice chair. David Ford, our second vice chair, will become our first vice chair. And so, things will go on. We will keep fighting the good fight. And I hope to see you all, around the borough.
Thank you.
Is Alicia serving a full term, or is...
She'll serve through June, and then there'll be an election.
Okay.
You're welcome.
All right. Bert.
Okay, Community Board 4, we have a ULUR beginning, and it's a compressed process of a ULUR. It's the first time we have transfer of development rights from the park. This is actually from the Chelsea Piers to a site, 29th Street, 30th Street, between 11th and 12th Avenue. Two issues in the ULUR, besides the timing, is what's going to be going on the actual site, 29th to 30th Street. There are two different developers there. There's also, if we ever get that tunnel to New Jersey for the new trains, there's going to be a, what do you call that, event there. So that there's a lot of technical aspects to this site. But what's important to us, besides the positioning of the buildings and street, is it going to be flat on the street, or are we going to have retail, is the money going to the park for the sale. And the park, Hudson River Park Trust has given us, oh yes, we're going to use the money for one of these, or a number of these, I don't know, 10 different items. So for us, the issue is, can we get some priorities here? How much are these items going to cost? Because the money is actually limited. Is one item going to take all the money? Or we want some input in what items, because we want all the items, but we know we're not going to get it at once. Where is it going to go? That's a big issue that's coming up before us right now. In addition to the ongoing affordable housing, we have a couple of sites that we're still struggling over. Illegal demolitions, ongoing, and we have a little tweak on the demolitions. We've had a site on 7th Avenue and 21st Street that for years has been semi-occupied and was going to be rehabbed. We got a not-for-profit that will take, not-for-profit housing, it said that we'll take care of it. And we said that we would like a gut rehab. And they came in and said, oh yeah, we'll do a gut rehab. And then they come back and say, oh no, we got to demolish it. We can't, it's too expensive. It's not financially viable, which is the exact same response we get from the private developers, which we've been fighting. No, we need to maintain the housing. Do something. Try to figure out a way to maintain the housing. And so our response, it would be completely fantastical if we would respond to the not-for-profit differently than the for-profit, because it's the exact same situation. So this is just beginning, just beginning. Let you know what happens later. Thank you.
Thanks, Bert. CB5, CB6.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Some of you may know that over the past 2 years, we've been located in temporary space. And over the last year, we had to move twice during the last year from one place to another. And we're presently located in the basement of the police academy. So when I came on as the chair, my #1 priority was to find habitable and appropriate space for the community board and to move the process along. and expedite it as fast as we could. OMB and DCAS has a procurement timeline, which figures out to be about 18 months. During that time period, we've lost 3 locations where we could have possibly moved. So what we did was we established on our own the procurement timeline and charted it out. And then we asked the Community Affairs Unit of Mayor's Community Affairs Unit to check that timeline that we established with OMB and DCAS, and they did. And it actually came out to be exactly the same, which OMB and DCAS wouldn't give to us, but it came out to be exactly the same as theirs. The difference was that they project by their timeline, if everything goes correctly, we would be moving in June and July. We project by the same time sheet, we could move in by April. Now, where's the difference? Well, as you go through the items, there are specific areas where OMB, the term sheets, et cetera, go to OMB. They allow themselves from 60 to 90 days. There is also in that process, when everything is final and it goes to the controller's office, they allow themselves 45 days. We indicated that we didn't think it took 60 to 90 days for OMB to review a process that had already been in the works. And we asked the controller's office that if they received it at the end of the process, could they expedite it and not take 45 days to do that? So given that circumstance, that would actually put us in office in April or March. So things are looking up, like things look positive. We have a location. We've established this, but the reason why I'm mentioning this to you is I don't know if everybody else knows this timesheet, procurement timesheet that OMB and DCAS uses. We have established it. We know what it is now. And so we can share it with any other board that may fall into that situation. And you can look at it and see how you could expedite your process if you're moving into a new location.
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
If you want to pass it to me, I can make sure that we
can send it to you. We have it. We have it.
Wonderful.
And fortunately, we have brought all our elected officials on board with expediting that, and we've pointed out to them the areas in the timeline where they could help to expedite it. The other priority that I had in this short little period that I've had the luxury of being the chair, that was to upstaff our board again. We've been almost 3 years without a full staff, basically working just with a district manager. So by the end of the year, we will have a staff of 3 people, and by January, we'll be up to full staff with 4 people on staff.
Excellent.
I want to thank you for having the opportunity of coming down and serving with you guys. I am one of the older guys. I've been around here a long time. Just a lot of you don't know me. But it has been a pleasure actually working and serving with most of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. CB7.
Okay, we just went through the 108th Street ULIP process, which is one of the better senior housing developer, and they've been in over 40 years. Much of their development, much of their housing is in CB7. Some of it now is in the Bronx and other parts of the city. The city was going to sell 3 garages on 108th Street to them and tear down. They have a Valley Lodge, which is the only site that has formerly homeless seniors. It's a shelter for them, but they live there full time, and they are provided with all kinds of services to get them to move into regular supportive housing. So Valley Lodge is 100 years old and needs to be torn down. So Wishfish has bought another building on 85th Street. So the plan is to move all the seniors in the shelter to the building on 85th Street, which they're now fixing up for them, and then tear down Valley Lodge and tear down the garages and build the new shelter, which will house 110 people instead of 90, and build supportive housing where the garages were. It's gone through Euler. We had one hearing, which was only the public could speak. We scheduled that so we had 5 hours in case it was long. We accepted any testimony for a month, and then we had a hearing where just the board members spoke. We had 25 board members at that meeting, and I was shocked at how well the resolution went through to expedite both sites, because there's the third garage is on the other side of a large park. It then came to the full board, and people came and spoke at the full board. So we spent two hours and 45 minutes at the full board, because unfortunately, the members who did not attend the prior hearings had not really done their homework and read all the materials that we sent out. And a very long, very easy to read resolution was not read by them. So there was, it took longer, but the resolution did pass. At one point, some of the board members wanted to take the parking garages, let Wishfish have them, but then they had to provide parking at the same price elsewhere in the district, which is kind of nuts, but that fortunately failed. We are finishing the resolution. It should be finished by the end of this week, and it then goes to Gail's office. And they're hoping to break ground in the end of June, so that there's a school across the street and would like to do as much of the demolition during the summer as possible. We met yesterday with this PTA and teachers from the school to reassure them that there will be a construction oversight board and that they'll be part of it. We're getting 3 super talls, which is sort of scary for us. The 2 of them are owned by the same person, or same construction company, and they won't even meet with our board. Our GM and I are staying as neutral as we possibly can. The 3rd building, which is next to a school and near a big development and near 2 synagogues, has been meeting with us, and they are going to start a construction oversight task force, which is all good. We had a crazy meeting the other night where the principal wanted a play street on 93rd Street, and after our member of our staff reached out to them, told them what to do, they didn't do it, so they angered the community, so the whole community came out. You'd think that children playing on the street was the worst thing that ever happened in New York City. Worse than rats. It was unbelievable. And the next day, the principal pulled the request, and it's not going to have a play street. We've been working closely with Board 9 on the night shift task force, and are planning a series of 3 events in the winter and spring on 4 NYCHA residents, and what we're planning to do is some will be in Board 7, some will be in Board 9. We'll have the dates and the speakers, and we'll just have one flyer and just keep publicizing it. And we are starting to work with Board 9 on Broadway. We've requested a safety study from DOT, and I've spoken with Adonis Rodriguez, who's the head of the Transportation Committee for the City Council, and he's more than happy to meet with us. And that's it.
Wonderful. Jim?
Yes, I am term limited, so last night was my last meeting as chair of Community Board 8. So this will be my last Borough Board meeting. It's been a great experience. I'm also going to be resigning from the Community Board because in November I was elected to be a Manhattan Civil Court judge. So it's been a great 12 years. Especially great the last 3 years as chair. I want to thank my councilman, Dan Garodnick, for appointing me 12 years ago and for reappointing me every 2 years. The new chair is Alita Camp. She'll be joining you all in January. Also, there are a lot of changes in the board office. Our longtime District Manager Latha Thompson will be leaving at the end of the month. So, as well as we have an opening for an Assistant District Manager. And last night, for the past month, we've been meeting with candidates for the District Manager. And I announced last night our choice for the new District Manager for Community Board 8 is Will Brightbill. He is a member of Dan Gorodnick's office, so we're welcoming, and he was there last night. So Community Board 8 is certainly in good hands, and thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. CB9.
All right, good morning, everyone. We actually had quite a lot of stuff happening. I won't go into all the details, but I presume that majority of you at least know the first one. On November 17th, the large fire that happened up on 145th and Broadway. So that fire affected 2 buildings, altogether 48 families, 120 individuals, 9 of them were children. The majority of folks were taken to Brooklyn for housing, temporary housing by Red Cross. And maybe within a week or so, 561, the least affected of the 2 buildings, the residents were starting to come back in, but 565 remain unoccupied. And I think to this day, they still haven't quite determined what the cause of the fire was. But the big story of this, though, is the response of the community in supporting the families. We put out together the Borough President's Office. Thank you very much. Our council member, Levine, other elected officials, some community-based organizations, Convent Avenue Baptist Church, for example, 333 Broadway, they all acted as drop-off points after we put the word out for community members to provide supplies, toiletries of that nature to the families, and it was an overwhelming response by the community. Many of them brought items, some of them did Amazon, and we were just receiving boxes of Amazon that were coming to us, provide to give to the families. One of the restaurants, they're going to be giving a Christmas dinner to them as well. The Consul General had a dinner for them. So it was altogether really what the community is all about, coming together, providing support. And all these variety of organizations that came together acted very quickly. I have to say, one of the things that we kind of took from that is we're putting together somewhat of a response type of a group per se of many of the players that acted and that supported the families after this, just so it's much easier for us to get information to everyone else. We know exactly who will be contacted. We know who will be able to provide what. And I think it's something that, if not it's already done in your boards, that in your district you should also consider that as well. And unfortunately at the time, our CERT representative was in the hospital, and that would have been our first person we have gone to try and connect everybody else, and she wasn't around. But as it so happened, we would just be able to get to many of the principals in these different organizations, and it worked pretty well. So it's something that we'll be going back to them and just say what are some of the things that was good and bad about it, and how can we make it a little bit better. So we'll be going forward and doing that. We got some news, many of you know, through our community benefit agreement with Columbia, there are certain benefits that we were getting from that, including a couple of schools. One of them is TCCS, which is a public school. Now, one of the challenges for that school is that it's co-located in a building with 2 of the schools actually, and we have been constantly asking for a new building to be able to have because they've been looking to expand, and they've been decreasing the amount of students coming into the school each time just because of lack of space. Good news, bad news. The good news, we got a building. As bad news, it's not within our district. So it's somewhat of a challenge for parents who have one new student who is in the newer building and older student who is in the old building to be able to go to both of them. So we're asking, we're having conversations with TCCS, DOE, just in terms of whether there can be shuttles that are going to be between the buildings. There's staggered start times for the different schools. It's supposed to come online in the 2018-2019 school period. So we have some time to try and work out the kinks. It's not the best, but we think it's something that hopefully can provide some assistance in some of the school crunch that's happening in our neighborhood right now. And just one other thing, we are looking to support an effort to get Governor Cuomo to sign a bill S6513, which is to increase micro-purchasing for MWBEs. Currently, micro-purchasing in many city agencies are $20,000. The effort is to increase that to $150,000. And so we're looking to see how we might be able to get support for that and get that through, and hopefully we'll get it passed through.
Can you explain super briefly what micro-purchasing is?
So micro-purchasing is basically, for the city agencies, they have a contract, and it's a no-bid contract. It's relatively simple for someone to get in there. They don't necessarily have to go through a whole RFP and demonstrate everything, so it's much quicker, much faster. And as you all know, from OMB to that lengthy timeline, it takes a while for a contract to get executed and for money to be paid out in city agencies. So in this case, it's just basically raising that from 20,000 to 150,000. They'll be able to have access to that. So we will be getting a resolution out on that at some point, and I'll bring it here for all the chairs to see, so that the possibility to get behind it as well. Thank you.
I'll just follow up and say two things. Our office is currently working on a letter with other stakeholders in CB9 about getting people access back into the building for their vital items and stuff post the fire. So I know that we're working on that. And then our office, every office does something different when something happens. So even with the fire that happened up at Nagel Avenue, I think every elected office tries to sort of figure out how they can be of assistance. Luckily, the city does a really amazing job when it comes to responding to crises. But I think that there's certainly roles that we can play. So one of the things that we've sort of been thinking about is, putting together a list of commercial real estate brokers that can help people, especially for a small business, if they have lost the ability to have their business out of that space, that there are opportunities for them to enlist other folks to find new space. And so we're looking to sort of see, sort of similar to you, what are some ways that our office can be of assistance. So going onto the site might not necessarily be helpful, but I know even at the Nagel Avenue fire, we had someone that helped with translation out on the site, helping to translate between small business owners and SBS, who, they have a great team, but, they could always use more assistance. So if you think about other ways in which, and again, your neighborhood's best, so if something happens particularly in your neighborhood, what are ways that our office can help support you, whether it be if you're an uptown neighborhood, you can use NMO as a location to make phone calls and to have people sort of use it as a home base. But we're really open to thinking about other ways to help support communities when they're going through something. So, if you have suggestions or ideas for us, please let us know. Okay. CB10.
Good morning, I'm John Lynch, First Vice Chair, on behalf of Chair Cicely Harris. Seems to be a theme, but we also just hired an assistant district manager, and we have recently hired a community associate. So we, I think, for the first time in about 5 years, are now fully staffed with 4 people. So we'll be doing amazing things now with full staff. We have been planning and looking forward to our faith-based development, real estate development seminar, which was supposed to be in December, but a lot of the speakers canceled, so we moved it to January. As you know, in Harlem, we have a lot of religious institutions, a lot of property owners, a lot of downsizing of churches and development opportunities. We've seen a lot of situations where churches have been developed. Often they get space in a new building, and they do this because they can't afford to support their congregation any longer, and often they are controlling some valuable real estate. So we're doing this seminar to educate faith-based landowners about development opportunities, what to watch out for, hopefully legal advice and real estate advice so they don't get taken advantage of, advice about landmarking issues, LPC issues, and the like. So we'll be doing that in January. We've been busy. We have a bylaws task force that has been busy reviewing the borough president's model bylaws, looking at our own, and trying to really put the time into coming up with our best possible set of bylaws. And finally, Terry, your report reminded me when you talked about losing the park to development. We've been struggling with a resolution for months now regarding the many community gardens that we have in our community. Of course, again, in our neighborhood, we had a lot of abandoned buildings in years back. A lot of them were, control was given over to community gardens. In many, if not all cases, the control was given with an agreement that the gardens would be given back for affordable housing if and when that was necessary. Well, maybe 20 years ago that didn't seem likely or too far away, but now HPD is coming to a lot of its gardens and asking to take them back. So we have both sides coming to us for support, and it's a tough issue because we appreciate the green space, of course, and a lot of these gardens have been strong forces in the community. But of course, housing, affordable housing, how do you say no to that? So we're really kind of struggling to come up with a position on this. You know, the community gardens have done a good job of showing us the benefit of these green spaces. You know, some of them though tend to be a little bit insular and maybe their community impact is limited. But we continue to struggle with that issue. Otherwise, happy holidays to everybody.
Thanks, John. CB11.
Hello, I'm going to read off my phone so it's tiny. Please bear with me. We are pleased to report that on November 30th, the City Council approved the East Harlem rezoning, which was modified for height and density. The rezoning at a minimum will create 1,288 affordable housing units on private sites with 20 to 25% affordable and 2,600 affordable units on public land. In addition, $222 million will be invested into projects at CB11, and we are also having funding on NYCHA sites, a workforce one office. We also have an East Harlem Land Trust that is going to be funded, and the council has passed the certificate of no harassment program, and we have local hiring initiatives, and with a project on 96th Street, we will be having the rebuild of 3 new community schools. There is also a program called Sport Time that runs out of Randall's Island. They're a tennis program, and we've been working with them, and we have approved their expansion, and they're going to be giving back community benefits. Highlights of that include more free community programming from 2,500 hours a year to 6,000 hours a year, 1.5 million in improvement funding to community parks, and we are going to be increasing the number of tennis scholarships awarded to local students for years, 10 years and under. Those details can be found on our website, and we continue to advocate for the removal of the J. Marion Sims statue, as our community is very invested behind the removal of the statue, and we had one of our members, Erica Jones, testified at the public hearing. And so we will continue to advocate for the removal and maybe placement in a more appropriate setting that. On my notes, I will tell you that we're very happy to see a landlord ambassadors program that will be working within East Harlem as well to help our landlords pair to look to preserve affordable housing. And next month I'll give you more report backs on the East Harlem points of agreement.
Wonderful. Thanks, Nelsa.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you know if you know what percentage AMI the affordable units are coming in, or is it a range?
It's a range. Some of the units, like Acacia Gardens, is doing 30% and above. Some units are coming in at 60% of AMI, up to 60% of AMI. Then there's a break. Then there's a higher AMI. So there's a broad range.
Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, CP12.
Good morning, everyone. So whenever I'm asked, what does a community board do? What areas of interest do you handle? I always say we handle everything, small, medium, large, right? So I figured I'll give you three items, small, medium, large, that's going on in CB12. So the large is, I think we heard in CB11, Inwood was designated by the city or identified as also being an area to be rezoned. So word is that the application will be certified in January, so we'll be getting it very soon. We've already identified through our committees, our subject matter committees, our statement of district needs, as well as our expense and capital wants. And sort of, if the city's rezoning this area, why not incorporate it, try to get our wants and asks done through that way? So that's something that's gonna be consuming the board for at least the next 4 months. That's our large. You know. Our medium is, as you know, in Washington Heights, we have the George Washington Bridge, which I actually had to Google to make sure I'm making an accurate statement. But it's the busiest and most traveled bridge in the country. And there's a project called Restore to George, where a bridge is being restored piece by piece. And if it sounds fascinating, it actually is fascinating to see how a bridge is done piece by piece. And we're getting some things out of it through the restoration, including safety fences, which the board passed resolutions. And if I think everyone here tracks the news, you'll hear, sadly enough, on a daily basis, someone jumping or taking their lives on the bridge. So we've advocated for these fences. With the fencing also comes with an aesthetic value to it. So we're weighing in on that as well. So it's kind of a cool project, I would say. If you can, if you're interested, take a look at it. And then the small issue, and then these are very local issues, right? Like we talk about small issues that deal with our neighborhood. There's a proposal for a dog run, a dog park, which has brought out folks who have been on the sidelines for so long. I mean, we're talking about affordable housing, we're talking about, transportation, it's sometimes crickets in certain areas. This dog run has brought out hundreds. And what's good is that it's on both sides. So it's not like a lopsided argument. Sometimes we get these really lopsided arguments that you try to figure out whether it's an overwhelming majority or just the other half hasn't showed up. 3 sides have showed up to this argument. So it's actually a really fun, cool, sort of like civic, someone actually called it dorky, that I'm so interested in, the fact that there's all these different sides coming in on this one issue of a dog run, a dog park. So that's our small issue, which, depending on who you're asking, would rank up as the big issue. So that's it. Happy holidays, and look forward to seeing everyone in January.
Did you all have a big turnout at the committee meeting this week for
Sure.
the Bennett Park dog run?
Sure. Something we've done at CB12 is we recognize that there's a lot of folks who cannot make committee meetings, so we'll accept like statements emailed to us, but within reason. Like no one wants to treat us sent to you, but like a one pager, and we've made that offer across the board at general meetings, for committee meetings. We'll send it to members, sort of like FYI. And folks will trickle in, emails will trickle in on a license application or something. We've received hundreds on this dog run issue, which is,
big time.
Yeah, it's going to be a civic lesson in local government.
They're not easy to cite.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, council member reports.
Just wanted to say, to thank everyone. I'm Corey from Councilmember Garodnick's office. Thank you very much, of course, for supporting the resolution regarding commercial rent tax. It was a huge lift, and we're really glad that the council passed the bill. It's going to help 2,700 small businesses in Manhattan below 96th Street. And keep your ears open, because I'm hearing that there will be an official bill signing ceremony. So if there is one, we will definitely invite the community boards, which would be really great to have you there. I just wanted to say, as you probably know, Councilmember Garodnick's term is limited. His term ends in 2 weeks. My job ends in 2 weeks. I've enjoyed getting to know all of you through coming to Borough Board, and definitely hope that we cross paths in the future. And I'm definitely remain inspired by the hard work you all do for Manhattan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Other council members?
There's some DM spots.
Okay, so
Seems to be
I'm gonna
afraid.
call.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion passed. Go for it.
All right.
Oh, wow.